Texas. To outsiders, we are just cowboys and horses, but we all know that Texas has the biggest, most beautiful cities in the world, from the state capital of Austin to the busy highways in the large city of Houston. Or maybe you might be in the history-enriched city of San Antonio. Possibly you're in the greatest one of them all, Dallas, Texas. Point is that no matter which corner of this great state you are in, you're covered under the sombrero of coverage with a true Texan. Northwest Insurance Agency. Call us today for sombrero-style coverage from the best in Texas.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We're presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Call Mark Villasana today, 214-352-5656, or email him, info@nwagencies.com. We're about to give you a lot of info on this podcast, and it's the perfect time, I think, for us to reset where things stand on both sides of the ball for SMU in the class of 2026 recruiting. Might have time to drop a few nuggets here and there on 2027 top targets on the offensive side of the ball in this podcast, as I'm going to break down the offensive side of the ball today, Monday. Going to fast forward and break down the defensive side of the ball for you guys and do that. It is also camp season this weekend. So Sunday and Monday, SMU will host 2 camp days, 4 sessions. So they start 2 o'clock and then 6 o'clock, I think. And we'll be there covering it at ontheponyexpress.com. So subscribe for just $1 today. And also you'll get our exclusive conversation with Damon Evans, the SMU athletic director, some additional pieces of our conversation that were not included in the podcast that you guys saw this morning, presumably if you're already listening to this. And it includes conversations around Ford Stadium, and then later today, dropping some of the conversation around rev share and kind of how fans can get involved and things like that. So lots of good stuff on the site. So I encourage you to subscribe. It's been a fun week. And this is the time of year where I really hope selfishly that we shine for you guys on the site. I feel like the May 2nd recruiting weekend, we kind of gave you guys the glimpse of what is, the best coverage around in the market. And we're excited to keep delivering that. We've added Josh Butler, who's doing some recruiting coverage for us as well. So lots of good things. Also have some exclusive interviews scheduled for Monday as well that I'm gathering on campus. So a lot of fun around that and looking forward to it. But sorry to make you guys wait, obviously, on that little tangent. But let's jump into SMU recruiting 2026 offensive side of the ball, break down kind of what's next, early preview of the summer, kind of where things stand, maybe an updated list of targets and things like that on who to watch. Won't give away everything because I am trying to get this piece done. The Damon Evans thing took center stage, of course, but want to break this down for you guys on the site as well, because obviously not everybody listens to a podcast, but also it's good to kind of lay things out in the written word still. So let's jump in and discuss quarterback. And I'm just going to kind of go position by position. I'm going to go down the offer list, see if anybody jumps out at me, and also look at the visit list and kind of talk about some of those things. But at quarterback, it's a really good spot for SMU to be in. They like Cole Leinert, their quarterback commitment from out in California. He is the son of Matt Leinert, the legendary USC quarterback. I remember watching Matt Leinert duel it out with some of those teams. And it's really cool that SMU obviously has a quarterback with that type of family legacy committed to the program. And regardless of the work I think that Cole still has to do to be a top tier type of quarterback, he's got the size, he's got the physical traits that I think a lot of colleges really would value. And his dad was also a late bloomer in the sense that wasn't like in high school he obviously signed with USC and all those things, but but he wasn't. From what I've gathered back in my time as a youngin, and I did follow recruiting at that young of an age, but even looking back on some of those other guys that have gone through the process, wasn't this like insanely recruited athlete, and ends up being, of course, one of the best college quarterbacks to come through the ranks. And so that's kind of the hope for Cole, is he'd be able to come in and sit. When you sign somebody like Ty Hawkins, who has the talent, the potential, the skill set that you need in the offense, and all of those things, 2026 is a quarterback class that I think SMU kind of naturally isn't in the running for some of the big names. And there's very few programs nationally that each year can go grab a 5-star or go grab a top 100 guy. I mean, there's probably 5 nationally that do it every single year, it seems like. Ohio State is one. Georgia, it seems like, does it. Alabama does it. I mean, even your Michigans, your LSUs, some of those other programs, they end up with 4-star guys or a 3-star. I mean, Texas A&M is another that, even with all that money, I mean, they don't necessarily get these insanely highly recruited quarterbacks. I mean, Connor Wegman, is now at Houston, and he was the guy that really stood out to me. So there's kind of this natural wave. 2027 is one where, SMU, we have a story up on the site by the time you guys are listening to this about Malachi Ziegler, who is one of the top 2027 quarterbacks, and SMU's all over. I mean, honestly, if you're asking my opinion, SMU's the favorite for him. So I know I'm jumping to 2027 all of a sudden, but they also are in the running for a Carson White in 2027. They're in it for Colton Nussmeier. They are after some of these big name 2027 guys. And Cole is the lone quarterback committed to SMU in the class of 2026. They do want a second one if the right one presents itself. And in my opinion, only one that at this point would be that type of a player for them is Keyshawn Henderson, a player that they would, quote unquote, pony up and put together a nice NIL deal and try to, make that splash. And there's only a select few. I would have loved to see SMU after Bo Bentley a little bit more aggressively than they ended up being. I mean, I don't even think they ended up offering Bo Bentley. Now he's down to Oklahoma and LSU, and seems like kind of a surefire top 100 type of player. You could say what you want about not necessarily Salina's competition in a sense, but it's not, the highest level of competition in Texas high school football, comparatively to some of these others. I mean, 4A is really good, but it's not, your 5A, 6A. But anyway, Bo's been very good. SMU did not move on him. They evaluated him. They ended up not moving on him. Obviously, it's too late. Now he's down to LSU and Oklahoma. But Keyshawn Henderson is the one where, if you watch some of these top-tier quarterbacks, their recruitment is not over until they sign. There are some that will commit early and be done with it and over and out, and they'll be recruiting, but some are not done until the ink is dry. FSU is a school to watch in terms of flipping Keyshawn Henderson right now, but also SMU is not a team to watch right now. I don't think they're at this stage where they are, really, really, really stacking up conversations. They don't have a visit locked in, all of those things. And so they have work to do. But with a Keyshawn Henderson, there is a sense that it's not going to be done until signing day. So at least right now. And it'll probably, most of the time, these quarterbacks do shut things down, earlier than that. But it just has that feel to it. So at quarterback, I think they're done unless they get a true shot at a Keyshawn Henderson type of quarterback. At running back, I think right now they're very comfortable with Christian Rhodes being their lone guy. And that has kind of emerged through the spring as, I think, something that caught my eye, because you had Isaiah Lee, who was a longtime target for him. You had Carday Mack, who I think at best was a contingent plan. I think SMU had the last official visit scheduled. I don't think they are recruiting him like that anymore. I don't see them coming around there. We'll see. But SMU is very comfortable with Christian Rhodes, who they have committed in this class, a 4-star running back, big back. If you look at the future of this running back room, Kyle Cooper just needs to take one, replace TJ Harden, who will play his final season in 2025 at SMU, replace him, and then you would then have Chris Johnson Jr., Derek McFall, Jermico Green, and Christian Rhodes. That's 4. And then if you can figure out a walk-on, or maybe you get another 1-year rental type of transfer, then you're back to 5. Pretty good situation. And all 4 of the backs that are going to be, at least, assuming Christian Rhodes signs, which he said he's shut down his recruitment. All 4 of those guys are very young still. They'll be experienced. Some of them will be experienced by the time 26 rolls around. But you're looking at a very bright future for the running back room. So Christian Rhodes probably ends up being, at least as of now, the lone running back. I think after evaluating Isaiah Lee out of Lancaster, I don't get the sense that they're going to make him that big of a priority anymore. And they've been recruiting him for 2 years plus. And I think there's been opportunity for him to maybe jump in, and he hasn't. And so now I think SMU can kind of look at it and say, you know what, there's a guy that we really, really like as our bell cow. Isaiah Lee would have been a good second back. But at this point, we're not going to go all out and get into a big, recruiting battle, war, NIL, rev share type of situation. And they're content with their stud, Christian Rhodes. And he is a stud. He's a 4-star prospect, really intriguing body type. That looks like he'll be one of the best backs in Texas. There's a big belief on that SMU staff that he's going to be somebody that gets rolling again as a senior and ends up being, even higher than he's ranked. So keep a close eye on that and see what comes of that. But the rest of the position groups that I'm going to talk about outside of tight end, you really can see it going a couple different ways with some of them. And one of them, the wide receiver room, has already been addressed. You have 3 commitments in 3 highly, highly touted guys. And Ja'Kai Anderson out of the state of Louisiana, again, your LSU flip. They got him on board. He can do a bunch of different things, can really, really impress in a multitude of different ways. And then you have Xavier Barnett, your longtime commitment out of Yoakum, and he's on the cusp of he's a 4-star prospect, kind of on that cusp of being a 3-star on the industry, but still one of the top prospects, playmakers in the state of Texas. And then you have Aljor Miles, who you just beat out Oklahoma for. Now this position is in a spot where SMU is targeting kind of an elite player or couple that you really want to see them rounded out with. I would love to see SMU take 5 wide receivers from the high school ranks. I think at this point, this day and age, with rev share, and that's what makes it hard when you get to 5, because you've got to navigate all of that. But you really don't have, it's better to put up jump shots at this position than let it sit and I think kind of, address the position through the transfer portal. I know that kind of came off maybe a little bit weird or whatever, how to say that, but it really is a position that SMU has to find ways to nail it from the high school ranks. And this is a critical class for Rob Likens to do that, because you just recruited that 2025 haul, 4 receivers, really good group. You have Jordan Hudson or Romello Brinson rolling off. You'll have some key guys and guys you expect to be key guys back for the 26 season and beyond, some of these young freshman receivers, a couple of others. But you need this 26 class to hit, because you have those 25 guys that so much is going to be relied upon. But in 26, you really need somebody to step up and be at a very high level for SMU in this 2026 class. And that's why they're recruiting a guy like Jaden Warren, who's going to take an official visit. He's at TCU this weekend. That's why they're recruiting still the Texas commit, Chris Stewart. I think his official visit, which was delayed because he made state finals in track, I don't know when it's going to get rescheduled. I think there are maybe other priorities like a Jaden Warren or a Jaquane Prevost. Even I would say a loose one, Cohen Brown from Waxahachie, is still on the list. Right now, I don't know. I don't think he's going to end up taking an official visit to SMU, but we'll see. But you do have some of those guys that are right there on the cusp of being, players that you can see at SMU. The biggest one is DeQuane Prevost. I mean, in terms of like likelihood that it happens, I still think DeQuane Prevost is one to really, really pay attention to and watch. Arkansas is going to try and, throw a bag at him, keep him, 4-star prospect. Sam Pittman needs all the good PR he can get. Let's be real. But SMU is really wowed him with the role that he can play. I do think his family is probably leaning SMU a little bit, but don't sleep on the Jaden Warren buzz either. SMU has some good relationships down that way. Derek King's from that area. Rob Likens appears to have done a good job recruiting him, but you look at what SMU needs. They need to hit on DeQuane Prevost in that slot position and nail that one overall. And we'll kind of see if SMU can get it done on that front. But a really, really good group overall that SMU is looking to round out that wide receiver group with. And if they do hit on those, then you're really, really in a good situation as a whole. And that'll be, something, to watch. I mean, it just completely, changing the overall landscape of that wide receiver room in 2 years. So really interesting position group as a whole. You can't say enough about the job this staff has done putting together that wide receiver group. I mean, it's special. It is one of the best in the country as it stands right now. So at tight end, they do have a commitment from Andre Nickerson out of Inglewood, California. Stand up. Again, we talked about him recently. I really like his tape, like his body type. I think he brings so much to the table for SMU as a whole to kind of replace long-term what RJ Maryland is. I think he's a little bit bigger than RJ Maryland was coming out of high school, and he still has a year to go. But when you look at what they need at this position, they still need another. And I think there are a multitude of ways that we can see this go. And quite frankly, I don't necessarily know where it's going to go at the tight end position because they really like Andre Nickerson. Obviously, they got him committed. But to then push forward on who's next, I mean, you look up and down their offer list and, okay, there's this guy, there's that guy. But the biggest one that I'd circle, and SMU, again, if you want to recruit Dallas and you want to be, very relevant in that space, you got to get this guy, and it's Zach Turner. Big tight end, big jumbo athlete. If there's a comp of sorts, because he is listed as an athlete, it's not Kiki Burns in a way, but it is. Teams can see him on both sides of the ball, kind of like Kiki was. But Zach Turner is at Duncanville. That's where you've made so much of your recruiting buzz in the city of Dallas. You've got a bunch of guys coming from there. You've got a teammate committed in Braylon Edwards. You got to get Zach Turner. He's expected to go to Miami this weekend and kick off his run of official visits. And then he'll be at SMU for his official visit, the Pony Express weekend, June 6th. He's visited SMU more than any other program. And there are some on there. I know his visit list says 333, but he's been at SMU a bunch. I mean, there are sometimes where I've missed him or I've seen him and maybe I haven't marked the profile, but probably caught 2-3 games last year. I mean, he's been around a bunch. He's been to, I think, the last 2 spring games. He's just around a lot. So the actions are saying like SMU's in the right spot. Sometimes these recruitments get a little interesting when you do factor in rev share and you do factor in all those different things. But Zach Turner, if I was a betting man and picking out who SMU is going to get to kind of round out that group, I would definitely pick Zach Turner at this stage. And man, what a haul it would be if they could get him on board. So before we go any further, do want to mention our friends at StatusJet as well, statusjet.com. Reach out to him today and get the lowdown on a great rate for your next trip. Again, I mentioned our friend, our On the Pony Express subscriber, getting some work in with Status Jet, getting a quote, going down the path of booking his trip. Make sure you do that as well. They've got a great customer service team. They can help you out. David Henry, big supporter of SMU, has tickets all over the place. I mean, I'm sure he'd fire up a pair of tickets to a game at some point as an extra toss in to make things happen. But Status Jet is the way to go, way to fly, and they'll get you that discount when you mention On the Pony Express while you're booking with our friends at Status Jet. So go to statusjet.com for more today. So we continue on breaking down what's next in SMU's offensive recruiting in the 2026 class. I got to point out the offensive line group is in a good spot. You do have a commitment. You have Papunga Katoa, and you do have, at the same time, a slew of targets that you are still going after as a coaching staff. And if SMU can hit on some of them, it's going to be a historic offensive line class for SMU. That's what Garen Justice is working toward. And he has a lot of different options for that group as far as, which way it's going to go. But let's go in on another Hawaiian. I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this name right, but he did just lock in an official visit for the Pony Express weekend. And that is Kamoi Hi White. Again, sorry if I didn't nail that one, but Abel Hoopy signed with SMU last year in that 2025 class out of Hawaii. He went to Farmington, but Kamoi goes to St. Louis. So really, really well thought of school there. And SMU is battling to pull him away from some of those West Coast schools, as you would expect. Cal just offered, Nebraska's in there, Oregon has an offer out. So there's a lot of programs that are working in on him to try and get him out of Hawaii. But SMU has done really, really a good job working in those relationships in Hawaii. And now he'll be able to go to SMU, visit Abel, who is already on campus now working out with the team. So a good situation for SMU to keep the Hawaiian pipeline going. I just got to pour one out for our guy, Garen Justice, who has to fly out to Hawaii every now and again to see these guys. So, but these are really, really a key piece of the poly pipeline that SMU has been working on the offensive line front in particular. And so that's just kind of the latest one to keep an eye on there. But then if you look at the overall landscape of this offensive line position group, SMU's hosted some key targets. They've hosted a guy like Drew Evers, who is, atop the board. I mean, if there's a handful of prospects that are the top tier kind of must get type of guys for SMU, Drew Evers is right there. I had to get my man a new profile picture. That one's probably, I feel like that's from last year, but SMU's really done a good job casting a wide net, as evidenced again, Kamoi just setting his official visit, but also they're going, across state lines for other prospects as well. One that I think is going to take an official visit to SMU at some point, but I don't know if it's been locked in. I really don't. Is Evan Goodwin, the 4-star offensive lineman from Arkansas, big frame. I just don't know if it's going to end up getting set. I haven't really gotten an answer on it, but we'll keep a close eye on him. But then you go back in state, and I think that's really where, for the most part, a lot of the push is. And Avery Marcho is going to be on campus for that Pony Express weekend. He's got a big group of programs coming after him. SMU has, I think, since De'Aaron King was made, full-time staffer, they've kind of done a little bit more in the state, down in that Houston-ish area. And he's one of those examples. They do have, they also have, I'm trying to find it real quick. They do have, I had it up. They were obviously recruiting Sam Utu. I don't get the sense he's going to end up at SMU. I could be totally off on that. Might just be a bad read, but I don't get the sense he ends up there. But SMU is continuing to push in-state. Dejon Moore, 4-star prospect out of Willis, Texas, is another name to know. SMU is battling it out with Oklahoma for Noah Best out of Midlothian. You got to believe the Sooners are going to try to really, really push there and get it done, because they need to get a win over SMU this recruiting cycle, which is kind of wild to think about as a whole. But that's another one to watch. And then, from there, I think that's somewhat where the overall, I don't want to say run ends, but I just get the sense that there's not much more out there for SMU. I mean, they could try to flip a JJ Mays from Texas Tech, but we really haven't seen too much else kind of emerge on the offensive line front. And maybe it does. Maybe there is somebody else out there that they're in a good position for, that sets an official visit and all of those things, and we start to see things, kind of turn in that direction. But as of now, at least, that's kind of the group SMU's after, and so it's a good one. There's a lot of highly touted players in it, and if you come away with any of that combination, it's a really, really good class. And if that happens, you're going to have to give Garen Justice his flowers, especially if they come away with, they have Papunga Katoa, who did in fact shut down his visits. He's not going to A&M this weekend. He said he shut down his recruitment. He's not going to Oklahoma. He's not doing any of that. And that's a job well done. That's what you want if you're SMU. I mean, if a kid's going to commit, he's going to stay committed. And when you look at also what SMU has invested in terms of time into this position, yeah, they're not going to end up getting a guy like Zayden Crimpen. It doesn't appear like they're going to get a John Turntine, but they need to come away with a Drew Evers. They need to come away with a Noah Best. Those are two that right there stand out to me that they got to get. Avery Morcho would be one that if SMU comes away with, that'd be a huge recruiting win. Huge. And he doesn't necessarily have as much of the accolades as maybe some other offensive linemen do, like a Drew. But A&M, TCU, SMU battling it out there, that would be a massive win for SMU on the recruiting front. So a lot of different ways this can go, but I would say on the offensive side, they're in a good position. I mean, SMU is quickly assembled. It's kind of funny how recruiting classes go. We haven't hit June yet, and SMU has 13 commits already, and a couple more that they feel pretty good about. So top 25 class, sitting at a good spot. We'll break down the defensive side of the ball next week, but it's a fun time to watch on the SMU side of things. So before we go, do want to shout out our friends at Thomas Auto Group again as well. Appreciate them for taking such good care of me and my family, getting our new vehicle all set and ready to go. So we appreciate them, and make sure you head up 75. Check out their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi dealerships today.
At Thomas Auto Group, we created the Thomas Promise exclusively for our customers.
Because we believe our customers are the best. And the best customers deserve the best from us too.
That's right. The Thomas Promise includes the low price promise.
Next is the pre-owned promise.
And the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, right here in McKinney, home of the Thomas Promise.
That's right, Thomas Promise. So that is really it on the recruiting front. I don't have too much more to talk about on this edition, as you guys are getting ready for another weekend of summer. So the weather's been great here. Was able to get out, play a little golf yesterday afternoon. So enjoyed that, and hope you guys are getting out there as well. We will have coverage of camp on Monday or on Sunday and Monday. And then, of course, a bunch of podcasts next week. And we'll also be previewing the Pony Express weekend. Huge recruiting weekend for SMU. So make sure you subscribe to onthePonyExpress.com and get in there for just $1. If you subscribe today, you'd get all the preview content. If you subscribe Sunday, you'll get all the content, including the official visit weekend for that first week. So make sure you do it. I do want to close on kind of all the college football playoff drama that is going on. And I just want to say that I'm beyond over it. And I know that's funny, Billy, you're going to talk about it or whatever. I just want to share kind of my thought on what it should be overall. I like the 16 team 5+11 model. And I think the straight seating from there is important. And I would really like to see overall a better setup for schools hosting these games. And what I mean by that is you might be able to give somebody a home game, but there's just, I don't know, that has to be worked on. And I would much rather it be at a neutral site. Like, and I think straight seating can help playing that home game. Maybe we won't see some of the games we saw this past year, but there is also a reality in which I think so many people ignore that are involved with this. And that is like, I agree that, 16 teams is a good number. I thought Damon Evans made a great point. The NFL gets half their teams in the playoffs. 16 teams is a lot. But the reason why we're seeing so much one-sidedness to this is because there is that wide gap in college football these days between teams that really can win a national championship. Ohio State lost multiple games last year. They were ready to fire for Ryan Day after the Michigan thing, but everyone knew that roster was as good as any and ended up being, of course, in fact, the best roster in college football. And there's a reason why, I think Nick Saban nabbed one of his national championships with arguably one of his quote unquote worst Alabama teams, that was still so good. And that's the issue that really kind of I have with the college football playoff model in general, is you have a system that you're trying to get more teams in to give them a chance to win a national championship. I appreciate that. The college football was for a long time the complete and total opposite of what the NCAA tournament is, which should not be expanded either. But there is so few moments where the national champion can come from somebody that is one of those lower seeds. So few times. And if this 16 is what it's going to be, I feel like the best way to truly maybe see a little bit of competitiveness in some of these earlier round games is to make it a neutral site, to make it domed, to make it on an even playing field. And when you get to some of these high stakes playoff type of games, yeah, you can point to the NFL or whatever, but they don't, outside of the Super Bowl, everything's, on a home turf or an away turf or whatever. With this, there is such a system already in place with bowls. And you can include them or not include them or whatever, but there's already this precedent in college football of neutral sites, and also with the NCAA tournament, neutral sites. And I think that's important. Like, when your whole season, when you're playing for a national championship is on the line, going up to Notre Dame for a team, from elsewhere in the country, it just doesn't really, I don't want to say seem fair, like Notre Dame earned that. But at the same time, once you have a right to play for a national championship, whether it be basketball, whether it be football, I think should be neutral site. If you're going to go straight seeding, because if you're straight seeding it, yes, the higher seeds theoretically earn it, but there isn't as much of a gap potentially with those teams. So throw them in a neutral site, let them battle it out. There was a huge gap between Notre Dame and Indiana. Huge gap. That's just the reality of it. But the flaw of the system ended up being that they faced off against each other and Notre Dame got to host them. And that's not necessarily what would be the right situation. And now that it's straight seeding, make it neutral site. Those are the types of games that people want to travel to. And there might be travel fatigue. But there's travel fatigue because they also have the high-profile games in neutral sites for other people early in the season. So you're doing a lot of those big-time games and big-time ticket prices and all of those things Whereas if we see a shift from the beginning of the season to maybe back to some of those more on-campus games, that's where you can earn it. Because guess what? The cookie's going to crumble the way it crumbles because you've set this up years in advance. LSU, SMU might have its best team under Rhett Lashlee if he's, still the coach and all this. And, when they go to face Brian Kelly, if he's still the coach and all that stuff in 2028. But guess what? The schedule might be that they got to go to Death Valley and maybe SMU doesn't come out with a win. Maybe LSU comes up to Dallas and it's hot as all get out when they play in 2029 and LSU kind of fades. I know they're down in the humidity and everything. It's not a big deal, but there are differences in the early season at home games because also that gives you a chance to recover. If either one of those teams lose early in the season and then they go on a run and win the rest of their games, all right, maybe it was just a team in an early season game. But for the fans, you've created a chance where, all right, there's only 4,000 tickets for SMU fans in Death Valley. There's only 4,000 tickets available for LSU fans at SMU. Those are only 4,000 fans that are going to be able to travel. Some of them are going to be local. Where you can avoid some of that travel fatigue is making it neutral site in the college football playoff only. And if you make it neutral site, honestly, just nix the conference championship games. I mean, just nix them. I would almost prefer a 9-game conference schedule and 4 non-conference games instead of having another conference championship game that teams don't want to play in because it could hurt their seeding or it could hurt them getting in or out. So those are all things to kind of keep in mind on this. I know I said it at the beginning and ended up talking about it for 10 minutes, but the discussion around this is so exhausting because there's no rudder, there's no leadership. There's 4 different conferences that get a say in a sense, and they all believe they should have different levels of say, and they all believe they should have different priorities. And that's the hard part about it. I mean, it's a difficult thing to try to get everybody on the same page with, but the 5+11 model with straight seating is a pretty good situation. And if you end up getting to 9 conference games, you know what? Nix the conference championship game, keep 4 non-conference games. That'll help those smaller schools stay alive in this whole deal. And that way you have 13 regular season games. It's an extra data point for every single team. So in terms of level playing fields, that's nice. And whoever wins the regular season championship, guess what? It doesn't matter. Like if SMU won the regular season ACC and they still made the college football playoff because of that. They really did. That's why they made the college football playoff. And so if SMU would have had to play, let's say, a ninth conference game, then you would have seen them, pick up some game. It doesn't matter if it's Clemson. It doesn't matter if it's Virginia Tech. If you get another win, that's another data point. And you just would have given yourself another conference data point in the whole discussion of the 16-team playoff. And so that's where I think that my only tweak to everything would be 13 regular season games. No conference championship games because they don't matter. People don't want to play in them. You shouldn't have to play in them. When you're looking at those games, they are, man, unless you are a team that went undefeated in your league and you lost 3 or 4 non-conference games and you somehow got hot, it doesn't matter to you. And even then, you shouldn't be in the college football playoffs. So eliminate the conference championship game. Go 13 regular season games, then go 5+11 model straight seating. So there's my hopefully very limited amount of discussion around the college football playoff, but I thought I'd share it with you guys. So hope that helped burn up a little bit more of your weekend. And I hope you guys get a chance to relax because next weekend is going to be a fun one at ontheponyexpress.com. We'll have full coverage. We appreciate you listening to the On the Pony Express podcast presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. And I will catch you guys next week with more podcasts and a lot more fun on the site. So thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time and have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.